Creative Therapy Umbrella. This is a place where we talk about all different types of creative approaches to therapy. My name is Kate Shannon. I am a licensed creative arts therapist, a board certified music therapist, and I will be your host today. We have a really great episode that has another freebie download in it, all about healthy apologies, how to do them, how to spot bad ones, how to practice good ones, and I think probably for me the most important part is how to bring in parents, caregivers, and other adults to model what it's like to receive healthy apologies. So stay tuned and stick around because this is going to be a good one. So let's get creative.
Welcome to Choose Your Own Adventure, a day in the life of a therapist. You're a therapist heading into the office at 9 a.m. You open the door, fire up your coffee, and are immediately met with your first decision of the day. Option A, you frantically dig for last week's intake form, mentally retrace whether you ever sent that questionnaire, try to push out 10 session reminders, and attempt to reschedule 4 clients using your mind's eye, because let's be honest, that beautiful planner that you bought, still blank. Or option B, you open your laptop, sip your delicious coffee, and see everything lined up like a dream. Intakes, done. Reminders, sent. Notes, teed up. And your crisp, clean calendar, just begging to be gently rescheduled, not wrestled with. If you choose B, you're using simple practice. If you choose A, we love you and you deserve better. Make the switch, your future self will high-five you right after they finish their notes on time. Simple practice, your day simplified. Simple Practice is offering a 7-day free trial, then 70% off for 4 months, plus a free 30 days of AI Note Taker. That's right, if you sign up in the month of July, you'll get a 7-day free trial, then 70% off for 4 months, plus a free 30 days of AI Note Taker. Sign up today at the link in our show notes or head to creativetherapyumbrella.com/simplepractice. Again, you can check this out in our show notes or head to creativetherapyumbrella.com/simplepractice.
Okay, so I have to ask because I think about this all the time, but how many times have you heard someone say, I'm sorry, but like, it just immediately gives me the heebie-jeebies because it's kind of this classic way that people apologize and not blaming people because I feel like apologies are something that we haven't really been taught very well how to do. So apologies often come in this form of, I'm sorry, but I had to do that because you were running, or I'm sorry, but so-and-so said it, blah, blah, blah. And so there's all these different things. You can hear the lack of genuineness. There is a lot of pressure to apologize in our cultural society just to apologize, and it's an empty apology. There's a lot of issues when it comes to apologies. And so one of the first things I work with a lot of my tweens and teens on is how to spot a healthy apology. Most often, I do not frame this in how to do a healthy apology because a lot of times kids then take it as like they're a bad apologizer. And so I frame it, and we're going to learn how to spot a healthy apology. And so this gives teens, tweens, kids a really great litmus test of who's good at giving apologies and who might need some work in their lives. And so it's a fantastic way to bring parents, caregivers, teachers, other adults into the session if possible. So I'm going to remind you again, get the free download that goes with this because it gives you a little bit of an outline of what we're going to talk about. There's a visual that you can print out. I have this visual laminated in my office and I use it constantly. It's actually been written on my whiteboard for the longest time and I keep accidentally brushing it and it gets erased. And so I was like, oh my gosh, I just need to make the visual and have it laminated. So I finally did that. But so download that visual. This is a free printable of the H.E.A.R apology, H-E-A.R, how to apologize. And so this acronym just helps kids think of 4 important parts of an apology. So perfect for sessions, for groups. I print this out and give it to parents for parent kind of support, for caregiver support. The link is in the show notes. So let's get into really why we need to teach these apologies. So often, especially when it comes to caregivers and parents, and this is out of good intentions, but apologies end up becoming not about repair, not about emotional or relational repair, but about a teaching moment. So I always use the example of the drowning in the pool, which is it's from the book. I think about it all the time from the book. Oh my gosh, why isn't it? Breaking Free. No, that's not it. Nope. The Whole Brain Child. So that book, I think about this analogy all the time, is if your kid is in a pool or your client is in a pool and they swim to the deep end and they start drowning, they're having a really difficult time. They're in it. You're not going to be on the side of the pool and say, I'm sorry, but XYZ, but you shouldn't have gone to the deep end of the pool. No, you're going to go in, you're going to help them, and you're going to get them regulated, and you're going to get them to the shorter the end of the pool so that they can become regulated again. And so I think that's a great example to keep in mind at any point of dysregulation, but also for apologies. When we make an emotional or a relational rupture for whatever reason, we make a mistake, something scary happens, and we have to grab our kid out of running into traffic, whatever it is, um, it's important that we make the repair on its own because if we don't, often what happens is the moment for repair actually just becomes this teaching moment, and it feels like the repair doesn't matter to the receiver. Again, this is exactly, I'm sorry, but that doesn't feel very good if someone yells or if someone loses their cool. So we really need to help adults, kids, everybody understand that repair should happen alone. The teaching and all of that stuff can come later in the day, 6 hours later, the next day, whatever it is. The teaching moment can happen later. The repair moment cannot. The repair has to happen on its own, that it's just enough that that is the biggest thing to focus on. So, the role for a therapist is really how can we guide this apology as a process, helping kids be able to spot good apologies, be able to receive good apologies, of course, be able to do great apologies, and helping adults know the accountability that they have in this and to really remember to focus on the repair and not the teaching moment of the parent skill that we all kind of lean into, a lot of us on accident, but really kind of pulling ourselves back from those teaching moments and saving them for a different time. When your kid's regulated, when you've made the repair, that's the time to teach them why that thing happened, if it happened for like a reason. Um, so let's walk through this acronym so that we can break this down and how on earth are we going to teach this? There's so much involved with it. So this acronym is just, it's a helpful, acronyms are always helpful in my mind. They tend to be visual in my brain. And of course, having a visual always helps. So let's walk through each part. The first one is H for hurt, helping people and kids recognize how the other person might feel. This is where we grow the empathy. When you yelled at your sister about, her borrowing your Nintendo Switch, how do you imagine she might have felt? Or how would you feel if someone yelled at you? What do you usually feel? Was there a time that that happened? And again, we're trying not to shame here. So I always encourage the way you go about these conversations should be really thoughtful, but and very dependent on the client that you're working with. But so helping your client really step into the shoes of the other person when they are regulated enough to do that. If they're really getting angry and they're really in a moment, then they're not ready to. So stick with what's coming up in the moment. They're angry, let's process the anger. It might not be time to learn and do this skill yet. It might be better for a different time. But anyway, so helping kids, if they are in the space to get to that empathy place. Um, E, the next one is then express. So, how do you practice saying the apology genuinely and clearly? So, these are elements of thinking of how to make an apology, but I think they're also the things that are required. So, when you say an apology, it's required to maybe say how you imagine the person might feel. I'll give an example of this when we get to the end of it. But so, we've got H for hurt to build empathy, E, express. Practice saying the apology genuinely and clearly. We all know, I know all of you listening can imagine a kid saying this right now. The like, I'm sorry, not genuine, not genuine at all. So we need to practice saying apologies genuinely and clearly. I use this when I'm teaching this method for kids and for parents in session. We do role playing with it, and it's so much fun. Every kid and teen gets really into the non-genuine way of saying stuff and getting really snarky, and it ends up being really fun. But I'll talk a little bit more of like how I end up using that later too. So, E, expressing it genuinely. A is accepting. You have to take responsibility. There's no blaming and there's no buts. This is another part that gets really funny. No buts allowed. But you have to take responsibility for what you did. And that can be really hard. And again, you have to be very aware of your client and when you're bringing this up in session or the parents, if someone is ready or able to engage in this for whatever reason. I always think it's worth it to try. And if not, then you go with the emotion that's coming up and try to move from there. Taking responsibility. So the last one is the R. So we've got H is hurt, imagining how the other person might feel. E, express, saying an apology genuinely. A is accept, taking responsibility, accepting responsibility. R is repair, where we offer to make it right, or we offer to try again. We offer to fix the toy we broke, whatever it is in small ways, the accountability, what we're going to do in the future. So, this is where we need all four of these things for a healthy apology. So, here is going to be my example healthy apology that includes all four of these things. I want you to listen to see if you can spot them. And this is exactly what I do in session. Literally, what I'm saying to you right now is what I do in session. So, I'll say, all right, I'm going to give you an example of a good apology, and that's going to sound like this. Wow. Joey, I am so sorry that I stole those Legos from you. I imagine that probably made you feel really frustrated or really annoyed or maybe even really hurt. That wasn't okay for me to do. And so I would like to try to make that better. And next time that we're playing with Legos, I'm going to ask you for permission before I take anything. And I just want to tell you that I'm really sorry for doing that. So, if you could hear through that, I imagine what you might feel. That's kind of the script I give kids a lot. I imagine maybe you felt hurt is always a great placeholder. If a kiddo can't guess what someone is feeling, hurt covers a lot. I imagine what you might feel. I tried to say that genuinely and clearly. I accepted responsibility. I didn't blame them for, well, they said no, so I took it anyway. Or I didn't say, but I had to do it because I wanted them. So there was no blaming and no buts. So I was accepting responsibility. And then I offered some way of making it right. So this is exactly what I do in session. I'll model. This is a great apology. Now imagine if you heard that, how would it make you feel? It'd make you feel okay. It still hurts and that's okay, but it does help a little bit. So then I start to play the game. All right, now I'm going to try to trick you. Tell me, out of these four things, which one did I not do? So I will then start to say apologies and I'll skip one of those things. And then I'll say, which one do you think it is? And then they get a turn to do the same thing. We go back and forth trying to trick each other, and it becomes very silly and very, very fun. So this is what I do with kids in session. I am teaching them these skills in the framework of we're just learning what healthy apologies should sound like. They practice in this, they actually get the experience of feeling a healthy apology and the difference of that. So then what becomes really important next is that we build this and generalize it to outside just this therapy session. Great. If a kid knows how to spot an apology, that's awesome. But what if their caregivers or their teachers or their siblings just keep doing really unhealthy ones? That's not going to help. So, our next part is how do we broaden this to bring in more people in the support system to help this relational repair? And we'll get to that right after this break. Okay, so we've gone over what do we do individually? How does this kind of look? How does this flow, this role playing kind of game silliness that we do with learning what the HEAR method for apologies? So, um, again, this is something I bring in kind of just as a foundational psychoeducation piece of the work that I do with a lot of tweens and teens. Just kind of like a basic thing we'll cover. So this happens in session, but we need to expand it and bring in family, groups, friends, peers, whatever this looks like. We want to expand this so that this is happening on a relational level. So again, we're generalizing this skill. If we just teach a kid in session and don't continue that, it's essentially almost a moot point, and if anything, can do a little bit more damage because now a kid knows what an apology should be and no one else is doing it. So, and this isn't to say that everybody doesn't do healthy apologies, but it's pretty pervasive, our cultural inability to have these healthy apologies. We're getting better, but we need to move. I think we really need to move forward in being able to own these different things and apologies. So, what I do next for in my sessions, I bring in parents all the time. I'm a huge advocate for getting parents in, caregivers, grandparents, whatever support system that a kid or teen may have. And I do this almost across the board, even if there are families, caregivers, parents who have considerable difficulties with a lot of these things, I will always try because I feel like in a kid's life, a parent, a caregiver, one of their attachment figures is the number one avenue for relational healing. And so I can do a ton of stuff in session, but if it's not happening at home or with these attachment figures, again, it's going to be like pushing a stone. So trying and really trying to make some progress with anybody, even if that's a little bit better of an apology, even if it's only a 50%, but it's better than 35%, we will try to make that happen. So I essentially use this as a parent coaching tool, but what I do is often I will have a kiddo come into the session. We've had a few sessions where we've done this apology thing, and I'll say, hey, listen, I'd really like to give your parents some homework or give your caregiver some homework. And kids really like bite onto that for some reason. And I'll be like, but listen, we need to teach them how to do this first. We're going to do this. We're going to do essentially what we did in session. But then I really want you to tell me if they're doing their homework or not. Are they practicing this at home? Are they trying again if they don't get it right? And can we talk to them about that? And kids like love this of like, yeah, I want to give my parent homework. So oftentimes that's how I'll frame it. Again, this is unique to every kid. But so I'll bring a parent in, and usually this is maybe like the last 15 or 20 minutes of a session. And I will essentially do the same thing where I will say, like, okay, client, kiddo, let's walk through your parents the four big parts of an apology. HEAR. What do these stand for and what do they mean? And I'll be like, do you remember? I'll often kind of give this support of like, do you remember what the H stands for? And I'll have the visual there and everything. And so that will be there. And if they do remember, if they need a little support, then I'm there to help kind of co-teach this with the parent. I also, of course, prep parents and I'm like, hey, is it cool if you come in today and we kind of teach you the skill? So parents are in on this and they're prepped to know what's coming. So walking the kid through, some kids are very independent. They walk through and they teach it. They give examples. Some kids get really into it. So I'm always trying to giving that space and support to adapting depending on what the kid needs. So then we walk through it and kind of teaching this to parent or caregiver, the H, the E, the A, the R. And then I say to the kiddo, okay, now we're going to play the game. And, why don't we practice with, each of us trying to do a really healthy apology? And let's see if we can do it. Like let's just see if we can do an example, make up something and just to try to hit all four. And then each one, the parent, the caregiver, whoever it is, they'll try one. And the kiddo will say, like, yeah, you got all four. That was, or like, oh, I don't know if you really did do this part. Or I heard a but. Try it again. So then we kind of do this back and forth. And then we go into playing the game. Okay, now let's try to trick each other and see if we can purposefully leave something out, leave one of the hurt, the express, the accept, or the repair out, and see if the other person can catch it. So, what this is doing is not only, and this can be done in groups with other kids, this can be done with teachers in classrooms, this can be done everywhere. But what this does is provides a not only in the moment relational connection, talking about apologies openly when someone is still maybe being hurtful in their attempt in an apology, even though they're trying. This is providing such a great foundation of talking about relationship in the moment and helping caregivers, families, adults, and kids face that together, which can be pretty dysregulating. But so we're holding the space for that of like, hey, let's talk about it. Let's talk about apologies. Let's talk about it and just be open. And additionally, it's providing the how to. How do we do this? How do we repair well? So we're kind of doing two things at once. We're giving the information, but we're also practicing the dysregulation and tolerating the discomfort of talking about apologies and talking about repair and saying sorry and owning mistakes and modeling healthy mistakes. We're doing so much in one little thing. So you can use this in role playing. You can get real creative. And like, I mean, I've had kids come up with such hilarious stories of these like let's come up with a scenario where you have to apologize and let's write out a whole script. You can draw and write during an apology if you have a kid who's really dysregulated, bringing in some sort of like bilateral movement or somatic movement while they're doing something. Using puppets or stories with younger clients, bringing in sand tray so that you're doing these apologies with different characters so it's not as intense. There's a ton of ways to get creative with this. So I would say this is, again, this is probably one of the first things that I do with a lot of the clients that I work with and families. Um, a few tips. Normalize that apologizing is hard, even for grown-ups. It is hard. So we have to give grace, but not always give grace. So obviously, we can't give grace to someone if they've apologized 1,000 times for the same thing and they're still not changing it. Then we need to set a boundary, a hold accountability. So this actually is why I do apologies first, is because it goes into the next thing. It builds onto the healthy boundaries discussion. But anyway, we want to normalize apologizing is hard. We want to try to keep it playful and keep it compassionate. So, playfulness and compassionateness will normalize that this is a little uncomfortable, but it's really important. We can hold compassion and still be playful, and that might help it be a little bit easier to talk about in session and at home. Practice makes it safer and practice makes it easier. So just keep practicing. Keep trying to work on making it better. We may never be at 100% with apologizing, and that's not the goal. We just want to get better. We want to keep moving forward with it. So, with all of that, the H.E.A.R apology method. Again, I'll review it again just to kind of like close this out. H stands for hurt, helping kids and adults recognize how the other person might feel. We're building empathy. Again, I always tell kids if you don't know what to say you imagine they might have felt hurt. It's the best kind of like sentence starter, apology starter. I'm really sorry. I imagine maybe you felt hurt with that thing. E stands for express. Express the apology genuinely. Practice using your tone of voice. Practice saying it clearly. A is accepting responsibility. You have to take responsibility. No blaming, no buts allowed. R is for repair. Offer to make it right in any way that you can. If that's fixing something, if that's working on yourself, whatever that is, repairing and offering ways to make it right. So head to the show notes. You can put your email in. If you're on the newsletter, you probably already got this because it went out already. But download this free handout so you can laminate it. You can send it home with parents. It's super easy. It's concise. It's a great foundational skill to work with, relational skill that I feel like everybody should have. That should be taught in schools. This should be just like in the ideal, classroom school one day that will just have like relationship class on stuff like this. But anyway, head into the link in our show notes. You can download this for free, use it with your clients, give it to, share this episode with other people that you might think it might be helpful with. Of course, if you want to subscribe, leave a review, stay connected. That we always love that too because that helps us become more visible. It helps people find us. So yeah, reach out. Always let us know what you think of this stuff. So I hope this is helpful. I hope you can bring this into your sessions in a creative way. I'd also love to hear about it if you do something fun and creative with it. And besides that, of course, don't forget to just be creative. Thanks so much. Also, P.S. Um, Stick around for if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, bringing in parents or bringing in caregivers or teachers or adults or whatever, that sounds so scary. I've got you. This whole month, we're going to be talking a lot about bringing parents into sessions and really kind of generalizing the work that we do. And so I will be talking more next week about not only the why, and this will be a couple weeks out, but we'll be talking about why we should bring in all of the research behind bringing parents and bringing caregivers and other adults into sessions, or, making them really a part of the work that we're doing and getting them engaged with skills. But we're also going to go into like the fear of that, of like what stops us. And that's really intimidating. And how do we get over that? And what do we do as how do we regulate ourselves through that and all of that stuff? So, if you're on the other side and you're feeling any bit of imposter syndrome about the possibility of doing this and bringing in other adults, caregivers, I've got you. Stick around for the next few episodes because we're going to like go into lots of detail. So yeah, again, be creative.